A Hunter in Teyvat, Chapter 74, Fan Fiction, by Azazyel. EI hilariously outskilled me in the handling of her spear compared to my wielding my greatsword or even my saber when I swapped between the weapons to confuse her between the length of the weapons. She almost perfectly matched the strength of my blows with my greatsword and would sweep it aside with her naginata-style spear. And even when I tried to get too close for her to maneuver her spear properly with my saber, she would treat her spear like a staff and hit me with the butt of it, or even attempt to mix in some martial arts, and getting kicked by a war goddess wearing high heels hurts. Finally realizing melee was going to get me nowhere, I broke out the bag of tricks as I made a large glyph formed on both sides of her, and from the glyph came the clenched fists and arms of a ruined greater and a partial summon to save me some aura as I used the moment she did a split to avoid the ruined guard's punch to send a pillar of geo rock from the ground into the Raiden Shogun's chest, who blocked the pillar with her spear, but with how she did the split she wasn't able to get leverage to just smash aside the pillar of geo stone and crystals. I thought you had electro energy. EI muttered conversationally as she swiped her naginata to the side, and with a loud crashing noise, she shattered the pillar that launched her across the room. As far as I am aware, I will be capable of wielding all the Archon's elements, I said as I pulled on my anemo energy to speed me up, along with electro energy to sharpen my senses as I dashed forward at EI with my saber held high. 3 elements. She whispered in confusion before her mind seemingly reconnected my words about possibly wielding other elements. Then she smiled as a spark of electro jolted off her spear, and as my saber came down on her, the haft of her spear, I was jolted as her electro overpowered the anemo, and my own electro energy shocked me and made my hands go numb. I will treat you with a bit more seriousness. Some gods were capable of wielding 2 elements to make up their own odd domains, like the stove and dust god had pyro and anemo to go with their geo elements. But I can't help but wonder if you could recreate their domains. EI pondered with some actual expectations, but I shook my head. Sorry, but I have had my powers for less than a couple of months. No, we're near enough time to master a single element, let alone combine them into something else. I grinned before my face paled as she nodded, and then she glowed with a divine purple light. Very well, she announced, looking down at me imperiously, but whereas I would normally feel indignant of that expression, all I now felt was fear. As I felt her true killing intent locked onto me as the wide-open cleavage in her chest began to glow, she spoke with solemn promise in her voice. I have seen your valor, your potential, and current martial skill. Now, if you are to be my disciple, you must accept the truth of electro power, and should you survive, I will teach you with all I have. She said coldly, and then from her wide-open cleavage, a ray of light was born along with a pocket dimension opening in her breasts. That she reached in to grab a powerful glowing sword that screamed danger. No, the glowing katana screamed with electro energy that spelled my death. Survive, Jake Barris. She whispered, and then she swung down her Muzu Hidotachi almost casually, and I was reminded of a combination of Ichigo's final Getsuga and Okuraura's overwhelming Zeros as my entire sight was engulfed in purple light. I summoned a dozen glyphs, stabbed my rainslasher into the ground, and braced myself behind it. But nothing mattered. No resistance mattered under the Electro Archon's power. I was thrown so hard that my form was like something shot out of a rail gun. I zipped across her palace and was thrown through the several walls of the said palace, and I didn't even stop until I felt my body hit the gravel and ground outside her palace with aura flickering before a glass-shattering noise rang out as I felt my soul retreat into itself as it took everything it had to keep me from splattering on one of the many walls in the way I was shot at. I staggered to my feet, my bones creaking with the effort like when you do too many push-ups and your arms just tell you no. But that was my whole body telling me to lay down and recover. Don't harm yourself anymore. Not only was my body falling apart from the physical strain of surviving a blow that sundered and cut entire islands in half, but purple lightning arced around my body as I puked out some blood, as my aura apparently didn't save my ribs from fracturing like chopsticks when I went through all those walls, to say nothing of my limbs shaking as the leftover electro energy played havoc on my nerves. You are still alive. No, you are even managing to stand with your weapon in hand. I heard EI whisper as she somehow teleported next to me, but I couldn't move anymore, let alone respond to her, as my eyes dimmed and I felt both lightheaded and my body felt heavier. Before I could do anything, Lumen dashed out of the hole I left in my launching through her palace, and wordlessly, she sent a blade of wind at EI to make her step back away from my form. That's enough. He lost, and we will leave, so no more, please. Lumen almost begged as she hurriedly helped me to lie down. She noticed the blood I puked out and knew my ribs were fucked, to say nothing of any other internal bleeding I was missing, as my body was in shock. But I just smiled, shaking her head as she sheathed her sword back into her chest. No. My word is my bond, and for eternity my word is my own, she said, and Lumen gripped her sword as Paimon hit to the side, obviously terrified. I applaud you for desiring to assist your lover, but you must not have heard over our battle. He survived my test and the truth of electro-energy. He is now the disciple of Inazuma's god. Now move so he can receive the best healing Inazuma has to offer. I ordered, and at that, I lost consciousness as my form turned limp on the once beautiful gravel garden.